Can I just add one figure? 0 chance of turning this around. 0. Because there was a glaring omission in all of that, which is immigration.
Yeah.
It's like number one thing that exercises Labour voters and many others besides.
And indeed Reform UK voters who are doing better than Labour in the polls at the moment.
How could he have left that off? You know, it is so astonishingly stupid that you begin to think, is there something else at work here? Is someone actually plotting to make this party, this leadership, this particular Prime Minister fail?
What is the point of building houses for the homeless if they are not used for their intended purpose? This exciting question was asked by Isabel Oakeshott to Angela Rayner. At the moment, housing in the UK, which was supposed to be a salvation for vulnerable citizens, is in the hands of migrants. And the most shocking thing is that these are the very people to whom the system promised to give priority attention. This situation causes deep bewilderment and indignation among many. Angela Rayner has promised to build 1.5 million homes. Sounds like a bright hope, doesn't it? But here's the problem. When asked who would actually benefit from these houses, she could not give a clear answer. Are they intended for the homeless suffering on the cold streets of the UK, or will they be given to migrants? She evaded specific commitments, leaving everyone in turmoil. Why is that? This question torments the minds and hearts of people, and it just needs to be answered.
How can they have left that off? Because talk to anybody, and I know probably I'm in a bit of an echo chamber. A lot of people that I talk to are very, very passionate about what's happening to our country as a result of the loss of control of our borders. But I think that many Labour voters and many who, aren't sure who to vote feel really strongly about this. So why isn't it at the heart of his agenda? I find that utterly bewildering. And you know what? Every time that he makes a basic mistake like this, those on the other side, those in the opposition parties, literally are privately celebrating. On the one hand, of course, if you're in opposition, you want the country to get better. You don't want to see the country get worse. It's terrifying.
People are furious, and rightly so. Homeless families are watching in horror and despair as their dream of safe housing fades into oblivion, giving way to a confusing policy that doesn't seem to care about them at all. It's not just avoiding answers, it's a real loss of trust. How can you believe in a plan when the most important details are ignored? Isabel Oakeshott does not ignore this. She boldly points out the flaws in Labour's promises, emphasizing that these policies seem to serve the interests of politicians more than the real needs of the people. And she's absolutely right. If these new homes don't have a clear priority for those who suffer the most, then what's the point?
Where's the fun? It's so bad, isn't it? It is so bad. Listen, we in the media, we're quite easily pleased. We like shiny things, we like flashy backdrops, we like something different. He could have made a joke. He had this lame joke at the beginning about how, he might turn into James Bond.
Yes.
Really? I mean, look, if you're going to do that joke, fine, have some kind of self-deprecating, graphics that make you look like a funny James Bond. Honestly, we'd be so pleased with that. We'll lap anything up.
Yes.
Nobody wants to write stories with a picture of a Prime Minister with a boring red backdrop.
At a time when there is already an acute shortage of housing in the country and the number of migrants is growing rapidly, the stakes are simply off the charts. And that's the main problem. If the Labour Party can't answer the simple question of who these houses are for, how can they expect the public to believe everything they say? While housing allocation has already become the subject of heated debate, another serious threat has emerged: illegal migration. Since the Labour Party came to power, more than 20,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel. This is more than double the expected figures in such a short period of time. And it's not just statistics, it's a huge strain on resources that are already at their limit. And here's the main catch. The Labour Party promised to solve this problem, but will they be able to keep their words? People demand action, not empty promises.
This is a really simple rule, and you and I can disagree with it. In fact, I do disagree with it.
Sure.
But here is the rule. You can only be exempt for capital gains tax on the sale of your primary residence. And it is a classic dodge to pretend that, in fact, the other property that you're selling is your primary residence and your partner lives in that, and actually you're living parallel lives. It is a load of nonsense. It's quite obvious that she has tried to dodge here, in my opinion. And I think she's in real difficulty.
But this is not the kind of
and
thing
it is
that
such a trivial amount of money. And I wouldn't mind so much if it weren't for the fact that Labour is so profligate with our money and proposes ever higher taxes, yet doesn't want to pay them themselves.
Keir Starmer promised to stop the migrant boats, but after 5 months we see only a complete change in their approach. What does that even mean? Instead of clear answers, the public is plunged into even greater confusion and perplexity. Critics argue that the current wave of border crossings only highlights the ineffectiveness of the new policy. Starmer's leadership is already being questioned, and confidence in Labour's immigration strategy is rapidly fading. But people are starting to realise what this is leading to, and it's alarming. If Labour can't control illegal border crossings, what does that mean for the housing crisis? All these problems are intertwined like a spider's web. Every new migrant needs shelter, food and support. And as the UK's resources are limited, questions about priorities are becoming more acute and painful. This causes even more anxiety and fear for the future. The Labour Party has not presented a clear plan to solve the growing problem. Promises to fight smugglers and tighten border controls sound good on paper. But where are the real actions? 5 months is a short time, but it's enough to figure out whether the plan will work or not. People demand action, not empty words.
And that more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants.
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the case.
That's what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality, because where the
2.5 million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up? Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially
hang on. You can't, on the one hand, say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses, and then say there's plenty of housing already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough for the people that desperately need it. So the homes, especially under our affordable homes programme, which is social and affordable housing, they will be there for people who desperately need them, local people. We've already outlined how we're going to support veterans and people who are fleeing domestic violence.
Okay.
Councils need homes for people that are on the waiting list. I've already announced changes to the right to buy, making sure they
have this doesn't quite make sense.
So that we can deliver.
Now the public is in complete disarray. If the Labour Party can't handle migration, how are they going to fulfil all their other promises? Considering that at 1.5 million homes are planned to be built, won't they be overloaded even before the construction is completed? It's a domino effect, and now it feels like all the details are crumbling like a house of cards. The problems with housing and migration continue to snowball. The recent decision by the Labour Party to cancel local elections in some districts has caused shock and outrage across the country. Why did the government, just a few months after the beginning of its rule, make such a radical and unexpected decision? They claim that this is part of the transition to regional mayors, but critics don't believe it. It looks more like a power grab than a policy change. What is even more alarming is the complete lack of clarity. The Labour Party has not provided a single convincing explanation for why these elections were cancelled. And most importantly, this decision affects the very essence of democracy. People in these areas no longer have a say in choosing their representatives. This is not just controversial, it causes deep concern and discontent. Rayner did not help the situation. Her interview on this topic was full of mistakes, incorrect figures and facts, which only adds fuel to the fire. How can the public trust leaders who can't figure out even the most basic details? Every wrong step undermines the credibility of the Labour Party and leaves voters in a state of frustration and despair.
The houses they desperately need.
Deputy Prime Minister, it doesn't quite make sense. You start the interview by telling me that there's a housing crisis. When I remind you that you have said yourselves as a government, we're going to need 2.5 million migrants. Some of them, by the way, people are going to build the houses. Suddenly, there's a lot of housing. Where are these people going to go?
Well, Trevor, first of all, when you say about building as well, the previous government did use migrant labour far too much instead of actually building skills here in the UK. I've announced £140 million for new construction hubs so that we can train people here to deliver those housing. So I don't accept that we're going to bring migrants in for that. We've always said that actually we need to skill our own people up. But equally, we need to build the homes that people need. Nobody's had a focus on social housing for a generation, and I'm going to build those homes because far too many people at the moment are waiting on council housing lists, and I've got to fix that.
I really wish...
There couldn't be a worse moment. Public confidence is already bursting at the seams due to the housing and migration crisis, and this step is perceived as another crushing blow. And a reasonable question arises, why now? If Labour can't explain its own decisions, what is really going on behind closed doors? The housing crisis, uncontrolled migration, and now the cancellation of elections is simply unbearable. How many more trials will the Labour Party be able to endure before its credibility finally collapses? Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner still believe they can make a difference, but the public doesn't believe it. Promises to restore trust sound like empty words, especially when their policies seem to raise more questions than they provide answers. People demand clarity and action, not just words. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you.